Hello, everyone. I hope that you are having a nice day and you're enjoying the IBTM. Um, Before we start, I'd just like to tell you that at the end of this session, you will be able to ask your questions during the Q&A via Slido. So how to do that? Just after the session, just please enter. Go to slido.com and enter the event code IBTM World to Slido page, and you will be directly transferred to Slido. You'll be able to ask questions via the whole session or after that, as you wish. So now, please let me introduce you, Steph Beja, who is going to have a session now. Thank you very much.
Welcome to my session. I'm glad you're all here. Thank you for coming. It's a very hot topic. It's something in our industry that's more and more important. If we talk about conferences and events, we are facing more and more also environmental, political, or economic situation from the outside. As well as also climate changes. This is just a few kind of risk we have from the outside. If we look into the events itself, we're talking about comprehension of emotions, of crowds, and also all our other participants have actually a complete focus on the event. So the trigger is on our event. When we talk about crisis management and crisis communication, it's more and more important that we're taking over the responsibility. And MICE crisis management is a great tool to show responsibility. If something happens, a minor incident can enter into a critical situation and also into a crisis. Participants, exhibitors, partners and also suppliers, they want to know, they want to be informed. And therefore, MICE crisis management is a great tool. It shows that we are reactive, proactive, and that we make quick decisions. Today, the main topic is crisis communication. But why is crisis communication so important? Because every crisis is a communication crisis. Saying this, nowadays with social media, it transferred to a different risk, let's say. The risk is social media and emotions. Every sender can become a receiver. Every receiver can send out messages, and everybody can reshare. We are quickly liking or disliking posts. If we talk about crisis communication, this is really important. But before we start with crisis management and bad news, I have good news. In our industry, we have all the skills to do crisis management. We know that there are things happen, like the catering is not running, the air conditioner is not running, and we have contact partners, we have phone numbers. So crisis management is nothing else. We have to create a plan around our conference. And we are, in our industry, solution makers. That's the most important for crisis management. Crisis management is something where we look into the problem and we need to find solutions. And therefore our industry is the most best practice industry to do so. To make a good crisis management culture, we need to train our teams. And if we talk about communication, we have to train our marketing teams. Most of us do have a marketing team, but not a PR team. So how can marketing team share also positive notes against bad things. If we talk about PR team, most of them are not PR crisis ready. I believe with a toolbox of strategies, of prepared statements, also a marketing team can start a crisis communication. In our industry, it's all about reputation. I work for 2 years now on a crisis management concept. And in this concept, I work with experts from the crisis management world. We have also looked into what could be the possible risk for us. And this is a damage of reputation. This is the highest risk in our industry. Je suis Charlie. This went around the world. We know this. 7th of January 2015. The terror attack where 2 terrorists killed 11 people and wounded several. This went around the world. Je suis Charlie turned into Je suis Paris, Je suis Barcelona, Je suis and many other faces. Joachim Raquin, who created Je suis Charlie, said, I wanted to communicate that it affected me. I felt personally targeted. He never thought that these 3 words have such an impact. Je suis Charlie turned into a hashtag. This is the hashtag that is, in the history of Twitter, shared the most. Within 4 days, Je suis Charlie had been shared 2 million times. What does it mean for our industry? Social media is emotional. We talk about emotion. We're sharing good things, we're sharing emotion. And this is social media risk are the emotions of people. But you might also wonder, before we really start with crisis communication, who I am. My name is Steph Berger. I'm based in Berlin, Germany. I'm a conference consultant. I run events or conferences up to 20,000 pax. I'm over 18 years in this industry. I worked for 10 years at Messe Berlin, so I have a lot of insight. We run many European conferences, and I worked in 22 different cities. But I also love always to develop new things. And therefore, I'm today also a crisis manager. And I'm working on a MICE crisis management concept. And I'm a trainer, and I love to share my knowledge today and also in the future with you. Next year, in 2020, we have a great mission. And my mission is that we train and we make event and conference teams crisis management ready. And if you are interested in that, share please your information with me, connect with me on LinkedIn, because I think there's a great potential that we can make your teams ready for any kind of situation. And we will do this Europe-wide or even worldwide if there will be requests. We talked about emotion, and saying this, there had been a trigger for me to become a crisis manager. And this was in Vienna, 2010. It's already a long time ago. It took me also a while to be a crisis manager. I was there on a conference, And I actually represented Messe Berlin and Visit Berlin, and I had to promote the conference coming to Berlin in 2011. Being in the middle and in the great spot of the venue, I had, of course, also a lot of contacts with all participants and exhibitors, but also, of course, a great contact with the organizer of this conference. And the conference was full on the first day, but then on the second day, in my country, we would say, he came, it came, and it changed our lives.
Eyjafjallajökull.
Eyjafjallajökull. Eyjafjallajökull.
Eyjafjallajökull. Eyjafjallajökull. Eyjafjallajökull. Eyjafjallajökull. Eyjafjallajökull.
Eyjafjallajökull.
Eyjafjallajökull.
Eyjafjallajökull. Eyjafjallajökull.
Eyjafjallajökull.
Eyjafjallajökull.
Eyjafjallajökull. Eyjafjallajökull.
Eyjafjallajökull.
Eyjafjallajökull.
Eyjafjallajökull.
Eyjafjallajökull.
Der isländische Vulkan mit dem für mich unaussprechlichen Namen.
So the last guy said, with the name of the volcano I can't pronounce. And now I can also laugh about this video, but at that time we couldn't laugh. People started to panic. People couldn't leave our conference. Speaker didn't show up, so we had a real clash, and we were not prepared. We couldn't help the entire organization, we couldn't help. And this had been, for me, a really big impact. This affected me. And personally, on this moment, I decided I have to do something, and that's why I'm here today as a MICE crisis manager. It also changed the way to say that we need to do something in our industry because we are responsible for participants. Facebook, Cambridge, Analytics. I think you all remember that also changed our data protection procedures. And this is already a scandal. It's not a crisis. The volcano before, it's a disaster. It's not a crisis from the definition. And this also changed our life. For me, it's very important to show what did Facebook. What do you think? When did they start to react the first time? Any idea? So actually, it took them 5 days to say something. What do you think did the world around? They shared their thoughts, their emotion about it. So how you can catch this communication? Then they said, yeah, we're checking, we take care. After a while, they said, oh, we apologize. Mark Zuckerberg went to the Congress and he said, I started Facebook, I run it, and I bear responsibility for what happens. I think that's good. Normally in crisis management, there's also a hat rolling in the management department. Here the boss said, I'm responsible, so no one had to go. And of course he said, we take the responsibility. If you cross out the 5 days, we have a classical crisis communication strategy you can use. There are many around, but when we start, or in a marketing team, when we start, I would suggest following simple strategy. A, tell the truth, don't lie. Journalists, they're your friends as long as you don't lie. They help you. Show emotions. For me, this is really important. When you have statements, they should be approved by a lawyer. But it's more important that you understand the other side. So if you are the guys that are triggered by this emotion and I only have facts but no information, emotions inside, you will not listen to my message. So how you grab this audience to say, maybe sorry, there is something wrong. Always stay with the facts. Facts, facts, facts. Figures, important. And collect statements. Also, don't promise anything you can't hold. If you say the incident will be okay in 2 hours and it does not happen, you have the next communication critical situation. Bad news stays bad news. Beforehand, I said we are solution makers, and we have to accept in crisis management, bad news stays bad news. You can't change bad news into good news. It does not work. So what you need to do is to start from this moment on to find solution for this situation. Fake news, false news. The MIT Boston found out that fake news spreads faster on social media than the truth. Unfortunately, false news is also retweeted around 70% more than the facts. And it takes a falsehood to reach 1,500 people 6 times longer. So can you imagine what we need to do to catch wrong information? And therefore, you need to react quick. Que faire? What should we do? We had a conference with 10,000 participants. It's a conference about having babies, getting babies, and we have, in the Pharma Codex, we have a regulation. So children under 18 are not allowed to come to our conferences. There are data, there are medical products that should be not shown by children. Having a baby conference, you can imagine 10,000 people from all over the world. They also bring their children. So we need to be very tough in our regulations because they want to bring them in. We had a family. They are from Canada. I'm taking care of security, so they reached out. They were really unhappy that they are not allowed to come with a newborn baby. She needs to breastfeed this baby. And we do have do we? We have an understanding for this. But I have the regulation on the other side. So I need to do this. If I have hundreds of babies in the entrance hall, I cannot give to one the permission to come in. They didn't listen to us. All the help we tried to find out for them, they didn't listen to us. And what they did, they started to tweet that this conference does not allow mothers to breastfeed their babies. That's a false news. This is not the truth. I also have to say, in false news, quite often, this is the family truth. They really felt we did not allow them. So we always need to understand this is right. That's their idea, but it's wrong in the wording, and it really spreads fast. What happened? Overnight, we had a complete shitstorm on the topic. Interesting was, that was a European conference, so we were in Europe. You have the time difference. So not the people at our conference spread the word, it was the friends of this family. And they were in Canada, in America, and they spread the word. They even had an interview with the New York Times and said, European baby company conference does not allow mothers to breastfeed her babies. So that's a reputation issue. What we need to do is we also have to look in lessons learned. I will come back to what we did in a minute. lessons learned is very important. So a hot debrief directly at the event. 2 weeks later, you also have to make a debrief, and then 2 months later again. So this is out of my training history. It's a very simple tool. It's called STOP. For all the things didn't work. Continue for all the things that really were good. And to start all the things that actually needs to be implemented for your next conference. This is very important because you need to learn from every mistake. And this is what I want to share. I share my mistakes that you can learn from these mistakes. What we did. So, first of all, we learned that there is a cultural impact. So we have to identify where this person comes from to avoid. If you would have the team ready all night to work on social media, we would have avoided this. A. B. You need to use all your channels, especially the channels have been used by the people that sharing this false news. Response in time. For everything, response in time. Before we also talked about Facebook. If they would go out first with the information that there is a mistake, they would have a greater chance to lead the communication instead of being reactive. The other thing, in our industry, we don't really have a lot of resources. We have a marketing department, maybe we have one person in the event team running marketing, and this person is not able to hold on crisis communication. What we did, I like this, I call it creative resource toolbox, and we put normally a paper on the wall, and then we think, okay, which resources, like a dream, which resources do we need to fight against it? And what we did, because we had over 100 hostesses and hosts, these are students, many people love social media, so we had a big team supporting us on writing personal messages to the people that spread the wrong message. Of course, we had a guidance, we had some text blocks, and they could personally answer to the different people. And so we could catch this response. Therefore, it's good always to brainstorm what you can do and which resources you can take. I also would say on the first day, it's very difficult to take someone from registration, but on the second day, you can take people out from registration. You have the venue, you have the catering, maybe they can help. So let's have an event. We cannot do this alone. So therefore, it's so important that you brainstorm which resources from other partners you might have to support you. And it works. This 20 seconds changed my idea on crisis management. I have to say that we had a false alarm. Hostesses started to evacuate a room. It was only 20 seconds. Unfortunately, in this room, our president talked. After this 20 seconds, not everyone returned to the room. For him, it was a crisis. The venue even did not inform us because they thought, oh, it's a false alarm, it's nothing special. Coming to me, this information, it took them a few hours. I got it from other people. You cannot react, you have no idea what's going on. But it showed me that A, everybody has a different idea on crisis, so we need to define what is an incident, what is a critical situation, and what is a crisis. That's number one. I also want to say that we have different stakeholders, and we need to group them together. What we have to do is what I just said, what is the incident? We created an incident manager. So for us in our industry, we're not talking really about the crisis, but we talk about incidents, critical situation that can lead into a crisis if we don't handle this situation. This is what means MICE crisis management. The incident manager should be also connected to the security, the first aid, if it's from the organizer. I also advise, if you are a venue, I also would advise you to look into with your client to define what's the incident, what's the critical situation. You need to be all on the same level on communication. And you need to train the team. What we do is we have prepared a booklet, and there are different communication guidelines inside. In the build-up, we have a 1-hour training, and this is really important. I mean, of course, not all the technicians will be there. We also train the hostesses. It's really important that that you have a clear guideline, but we have a lot of pickpockets or pocket programs where people can, of course, see that, and the leaders have to train the team. But this is so important also in communication, that we have all the same guideline, and that also any kind of incident is reported to one person. What does communication means? We need to have a one voice communication. And this means for us, the client, the venue, and if something larger happen, also with the police. You need to adapt the system before the conference. You don't have time in a crisis to start talking about it. And depending on the location, for example, they might even have a PR team. They also have contact to the local media. So it's really important to understand who could also write a statement or has prepared a statement. And you have to go out at the same time. When we look into real disasters like terror threats, like air crashes, police works with a different partner. Most time they know already for hours the result. They do. But they have to prepare the emergency teams, they have to prepare all partners, and then they go out all together at the same time. And this we can learn out of the big threats and accidents. If everybody shares different things, you have no chance to capture this information again. So, again, I encourage you for crisis communication. When you look on this picture and you imagine you sit somewhere here and you watch this music play, what do you see? And if you would sit on the other side, what would you see? Everyone has a different perspective. So again, crisis management, you need to bring the perspectives together, and therefore you need to have the same language, the same picture, and this you need to do together. I encourage you to work together and to talk beforehand. And a MICE crisis team, for me, needs a definition of a lead. So in case of we have an evacuation, this will be the venue. Maybe you have a sexual harassment. This might be the client, but maybe because if that is in your venue, you are involved. If we talk about the false news we had before, this is a client matter. So you need to define who is in the lead of each of this communication. And don't start fighting when you have a crisis. You need to have this. So you look into your risk and then to talk to your partners to see who has the stakeholders in this lead for the crisis. How you make your own crisis. This is something that's very simple. A critical situation reached me during lunch with all partners. So someone approached me, told me something, and many people listened to this. We didn't have any facts, we didn't have any idea, and a lot of people listened to what this person said. So I have to tell you, this was so critical that later on we even had the police involved. This spreads in the teams panic, it spreads all kind of things. So it's so important that we have a structure. And this is a part of our booklet. Incident reporting. You should have a closed room, you should go somewhere else to give the incident manager a call. In case participants are involved, it's important that you maybe also take this person out of the people and say, oh, listen, we have an office, should we have a coffee, should we go? We need to understand what you want, but take this person out of the crowd so not so many people listen to it. Internal guideline, again, we talk about an event, and this is difficult. They're not part of your team, like when we talk about catering, about hostesses, but everybody is around here. So what participants do? They approach the people. They want from them the information. And therefore, to comprehend this is there's only certain persons are allowed to give statements, and there should be an official wording. Important is also to say, especially for hostesses and other partners, to send them to the client's booth. So we send all people. I apologize. I don't have a lot of information, but if you need more information, please go to the client counter. So we already put this there. We also had an incident where we had lots of hostesses, but we gathered them together at this counter. So no one else is sharing this information. And if it's getting higher, you should have a statement on the website. So everybody could say, I apologize, I don't have more information, but the up-to-date information are on our website. When you put something on your website, it's so important that you also take the date and the time. If you have more updates, people can follow your role of information. You need to be transparent. In crisis communication, don't lie. I just conclude now with a few slides. Again, facts, facts, facts and figures. Show emotions, not only the statement of the lawyer. You need to understand why you have triggered people. In time response, very important, you can catch information. Again, be proactive if you know there is a mistake. And you know, the step is, people will share information. You should be the first one sharing the information. You will take lead of your communication. Show responsibility. Do not hide any information. Create statements. Clear internal guidelines. For the statements, if you don't have time to do that, invest in a crisis communication agency that does the work for you. And B, then you have a partner you also can contact if you cannot handle the communication anymore. You have to have an incident coordinator. This can be part of the product team. It does not need a person that is only doing this, but all the information from the staff, from security, should really come to one person. And this person will then decide if that goes into the crisis team. We always say, be prepared for the worst. And again, the recommendation, an external crisis communication, only to prepare stuff for you so you are ready in times of crisis. If you start thinking and working on this, you have lost, because you will lose a lot of time, and there are so many standards. Also with Google, if we talk, I mean, you all know the risk for your events. It could be also something like death of participants. So there are so many statements around. So you are able to create something. Work together again, and this needs to be, when you start with the process, you need to define who has the lead of the different critical situations. Caring is sharing. For us, as crisis management, if you take care of your participants, you are responsible, and you are looking into the situation, and you also maybe cannot solve everything, but people see that you have tried your best, they will share good things. And I thank you very much for being so late here, and now there are a lot of cocktails. Thank you so much. I'm also here for questions, and we can have Slido, but you also can talk to me because we're a small group. I'm here. Thank you so much. Yes, in that way, there are cities. Depending in which city you are, you have a setup of a city crisis management. And if we talk, for example, about Berlin, Visit Berlin with partners, they have set up a crisis management, so you would get the outside help from the city, because it's something we cannot handle, but something like this you should really ask. I think also with, earthquakes, if you go to certain countries, you have the situation. So you could actually talk about how the city can help you. If you have hurricanes, they do. These cities or these countries do have a setup, but you need to talk and you need to define and ask them also for their communication. Okay, if you have a classical team has 6 positions. It's a crisis manager, it's a moderator, it's the logbook taker, there are assistants, and there is a comms person. If we talk about my crisis management, we should have a crisis team leader. We should have the moderator. The moderator for me is also the incident manager, who takes care to the operational teams. And of course, we need to have this communication person. If you want to, a logbook would be very good, because this is the official log you also can share with the police or with your insurance. If you don't have a logbook leader, take your cell phone and say, we are here with XXX, it's day X time, and we have this situation. 1 hour later, this person is here, and we all agreed on having this tragedy to go on. Again, this is if you're the organizer. Again, if you are on larger fairs or conference center, they do have a crisis team, so you will be part of it. Also, it could be that you have 2 crisis leaders from both venues, depending on if it's, for example, the if it's something that related to the venue, then you would go into the venue team. If it's related to your critical situation, then they would move in. So for me, it's 3 persons. And of course, you always have specialists. If something happened with your exhibition and you have an exhibition contact partner, this person would be coming in as an expert. If you have an IT issue, you would bring your AV project manager in. So it depending on the situation, if you need a lawyer, this will be also an excluded expert. Any other questions? How long before? Yes, I mean, I have prepared this, or we worked on this concept for 2 years, but if you have the paper, this is something you can send to the venue or the other way around, and I start a year before, because for me it's also the topic threats. I mean, you can be hit by a car, this is much more a risk than a threat. But still, we need to talk. Also, if, for example, here, the situation in Spain, if now there would be demonstration, we need also to understand what do we need to do if the measurements are changing. And I tell you, from my experience, the issue is also that it will have an impact on your budget. Yeah, so for me, it's 1 year before crucial to talk about this, and then you go from there. But you have a strategy. You also define, also with the police. We should talk to the police before, and also to say, okay, do you have statements for this certain situation? Will you share this with us? How is this? You will define it. When do we get this? So this is something you can do, and this is, I mean, security and crisis management is like this. It really goes together. Okay? Thank you very much for coming.